checkered flag has flown, but there's still time for one more lap around. We're dissecting every turn, pit stop, and strategic moment from this week's NTT IndyCar Series race. The post-race breakdown starts now.
One more lap around, and it goes to never give up, never, ever surrender. Don't trust me, just ask Josef Newgarden. What an incredible end to the return of the NTT IndyCar Series to where, as Josef Newgarden said in Victory Lane, where IndyCar belongs. I thought it was great that he added, this has always been an IndyCar track, and it's good to be back. For him to be back, he bookends the last race and this race, the start of a new era. Hi, everybody. I'm Jack Arute, and welcome to One More Lap Around. I'm pleased to be joined as my cohort. He used to have a million names, but I found out today that Todd Ault really is known to millions of people as the Ferrari billionaire. Don't trust me. Just go on to Instagram and see the little Instagram posting where he decided he was going to. I noticed you didn't give up the Ferrari there, Ault.
Yeah, I don't drive it that often. Be honest with you, I think I've driven that car 17 times. Always wanted to get a Ferrari when I was younger, and I had to wait a long time. I got it when I was 50. I think I was 52 or 53, and it's a great car. It's an F458, but I really don't drive it much. I really just drive. I drive a nice Cadillac Escalade, the V Series, and I drive a Mercedes S550. And you listen, as far as the billionaire thing is concerned, he asked me, what's the most you ever made a year? And I had an IPO of a company, and I was up about $1.6 billion that year. That was a fun That was a fun Instagram. Obviously, I think right now it's got about on Instagram about almost 13 million views in a day, and on TikTok another, I think, 7 million. So it's pretty crazy numbers for that thing. But Jack, it's great to see you. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. I've known you for a long time, and you started in Indy you went to Indy when I was born. That tells you how long you've been around.
Easy now.
You were there in 60.
Easy now, okay?
You were in Indy in 69, buddy. 69.
That's right.
There you go. There you go.
So what did you make of the race today? What did you make of the race? I just did not see this one coming.
Rasmussen's fast, man. He is young and fast, and when he has a fast car, he pushes it hard. But I was excited for Newgarden. I was bummed, obviously, for Roman because we sponsor his car, and that was a tough thing to not get out of the gate. They had some issues the night before, and I think it really kind of was inevitable. They couldn't get it fixed, and then they thought they had it fixed, but they couldn't go on a test lap. So, but I kind of thought Josef was going to make a statement here because he's a little frustrated. So it was good to see him. He was fast. That was exciting.
Yeah, but for Christian Rasmussen, he's earned. They did a polling. Bob Pockris of Fox Sports did a polling in the offseason and asked all of Rasmussen's fellow drivers, and in fact, all the drivers in the IndyCar series, who they thought was the one driver that they didn't want to tangle with. And it was unanimous. Well, actually, it was a tie between Grosjean and what I'm calling the Sultan of Sketch, Christian Rasmussen, who is brave. Todd, this kid is braver than Dick Tracy. Now, you and I had the great opportunity to get to know him, but to put in perspective what this cat has been able to do on ovals, let's remember that when ECR first hired Christian, it was to run the road courses because Ed was going to only run the ovals because he was the oval meister. He was the guy that had the oval experience. Well as Christian Rasmussen has done on behalf of ECR throughout his career, he has shined on ovals. And it's just, he does things that I have never seen an IndyCar driver do. He puts the car where I've never seen a car that close to the wall, and he escapes.
Yeah, I had a win last year, and obviously they got a lot of hope for him there. So he's very talented. It's been fun to watch him. And I do remember Ed, the specialist on ovals, putting him in the car full time across the board. I think it's obviously we would love to see Ed out there. Obviously, I love watching Ed. As you know, I've been a big fan of Ed's for such a long time. And hopefully he gets back. I mean, I think he's just doing the 500s now, but Christian's is going to be here for a long time. He's really doing well.
You talked about Josef Newgarden. I thought it was pretty appropriate that he chased. He settled back. Things were a little different in terms of pit sequencing. Used that to his advantage, but then all of a sudden, I just kind of wonder if he was as surprised as we were that he ended up winning.
You think I actually thought he had a chance of winning. I really did. I think that starting second, David, who has not won yet, was probably pretty excited to be up there. But Joseph's the king of these ovals, right? He's been a king for a while. So it's fun as a fan to watch him. I was a little bummed for Power because he started in the back, he got to the front, and then had that problem. But Josef, I felt like Josef was in the wings, kind of hunting everyone down, was eventually going to get the win. It seemed like he was. I mean, that's the way I felt, man. That's just me as a fan. I don't know the technical side like you do, Jack.
Well, let's take a listen to the way Newgarden reacted in victory lane, because I think it was a tell for us. Let's call for number 12, Josef Newgarden in victory lane.
Great to be back here in Phoenix. We love coming here. This has got a lot of IndyCar DNA, this track. So to be back here with NASCAR is fantastic. Our team just did a phenomenal job this weekend. Unbelievable to have the Expel car in victory lane. So pumped. The last time we had them was 2021 on the 2-car, and Team Chevy did everything we needed today. I mean, I didn't believe in the middle of that race that we were going to be able to win this thing, and we just came through firing at the end when it mattered, and so pumped for the team.
What is that like on fresher tires, late stages, knowing that you got to go out and go get it? Is that what every race car driver lives for?
Well, you got to be on the attack in these type of deals. That's how short track racing is, I think, specifically in IndyCar. Look, when the car needed to be on rails, it was, and we took some missteps in the middle of the race, and then we just got it dialed in right where it needed to be at the end. It was perfect.
What does today mean to you to get the early part of this season started the way you guys have?
It's just execution. Great team execution today. So proud of everybody.
And that's Chris Wilner in victory lane. And you see what I was saying, Todd? You could tell even in his voice, he was surprised. I think he would have settled for a podium finish. But none of us thought what was going to happen in the waning moments of that race when Rasmussen went to the outside in what really, well, it's a Rasmussen move, but he got stuffed and it looks as if he caused enough suspension damage that on the restart, he began to fade after the first 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah, I leave it to professionals to look at this, right? But you look at some of the people that finished up at the top. I thought it was interesting to see Marcus Armstrong up there in 5th. That was strong, and Rossi put on a good showing too. So there's a lot of people that were pretty excited to be here, and I'm excited to be here. I'll tell you a story. I came here 23 years ago with my son, who was 3 years old at the time, and Randy, who Randy Kepper, who's a big Indy fan. His dad worked for Pabst Blue Ribbon 100 years ago and loved Indy. And we came here. We watched Michael Andretti get crashed, and Randy's such a big fan. And so the stadium, the arena here looks so different now, right? With the
totally
grandstands rebuilt and stuff.
Yeah,
it's totally really an exciting track, and a really exciting track. And I used to think that there were a couple tracks that were my favorite, but I got to think Phoenix. I hope we're going to be back. It's really, really well done, really well organized, and fun to watch, especially in the stands. I was up in the suite, and that part was fun. And the infield's great. It's cool to be here with NASCAR. I agree with Josef. It has DNA here of Indy, and it's excited to be back here at Phoenix. And everyone, it was a big crowd too, so it was really fun.
I was going to ask you where you watched the race because you have your choice, and you said you did go to the suite, but then you went down in the stands and acted like a regular race fan, huh?
Oh, I'm a regular race fan. I don't know if regular race fans are allowed to sit on the timing booth, which is what Dale lets me do.
You don't have to rub it
there.
in, Todd. Todd, you don't have to rub it in that you get special treatment, okay?
Hey, last week we had a fan, I think his name is Ryan, who put in one last lap, at 3:17.98, and he's coming to whatever race he wants to go to. I love the idea. I'm such a huge fan of Indy. I've been a fan my whole life, and I've watched you literally, Jack. I mean, I'm in awe to be on the same program as you. Every time I see you, I hug you and say, this is like the weirdest thing for me to be next to you. You've called some of the greatest races I've ever watched. So it's funny. I hope the younger generation realizes it's great to have a legend on the radio and doing what you're doing and wind tunnel and stuff like that. So I'm excited. We're going to blow up this program, you and I. We're going to blow it up. I got my media teams all over it.
I'm all ready for it. You talk about Ryan. Ryan was the winner last week, as you mentioned, from Piqua, Ohio. And I was talking to John Stewart, your cohort, and he shared with me that when he called Ryan to tell him that he had won a trip, a VIP trip, private meet and greet, a fancy dinner before the race, sitting in the owner's stand, he can experience the race the way you do. He said, well, let me check with my wife. I was a little astonished because if I'm first out of the box, Ryan, if you're listening, I want to assure you, the race that you want to go to is the Indianapolis 500. Todd, with all due respect to the rest of the schedule, the Indy 500 stands alone, and just the simple fact that there's 300,000 people stuffed into that place where you can fit 12 Rose Bowls in the infield alone. That's where, because Ryan has never been to a race.
Well, that will be a race that he goes to that he will never be able to go to any other race in the whole world. There's no race anywhere. F1, there's no sporting event like it. I would even argue, and I've been to a bunch of Super Bowls. I'm telling you, as a guy who's attended Super Bowls in some of the best seats, there is nothing like the Indy 500 being down on the grid. There is nothing like that race. Thank God it's in Roger's hands now. Roger loves that race. I've watched Roger do it my whole life. There's nothing like that race, and I can't wait for it to happen this year. And I'm going to transition for you for a second to tell you, did you see Dennis Hauger drive backwards and save that car? I mean, come on.
That was amazing.
That was sick.
That was beyond sick, okay? But but what I want to see the valet that has to take that driver's suit to the dry cleaners. Because
there you go.
Yeah, there's no way. Now, I'm sure Dennis is going to lay claim to, just kind of nonchalantly. But just the way that happened and to stay off the wall. In fact, let's go back and listen to the Hauger crash.
Will Power showing a lot of intestinal fortitude in the early laps, being able to work the outside lane, trying to work over trouble off turn 3. Got one car sliding down to the inside of the racetrack, noses an inside safer barrier.
And that car continues to slide down the backstretch and come to rest just in front of the main grandstand. And it looks like the 19 machine of Dennis Hauger.
And Hauger went on to continue in the race. And in fact, it was quite the performance that he stayed off of the wall and came back to finish in the 15th position. So quite a day for a member of your squad. For DCR.
Hey, Jack, he led laps though too. He led laps, so he got to the front. He held on. It's remarkable. And by the way, they call him the Norwegian nightmare, but he literally is. But he literally is such a nice guy, such a young man. He has a huge future here. I predict that guy is going to be. I mean, Andretti already knows it. He's the real deal. I would not be surprised if he doesn't surprise everyone and win a race here this year. I'm not kidding. He's really, really good, and he's really dedicated to what he does. And he's got a huge fan base. He's got big support from Nammo, which is a big company out of Norway and operates here in the United States. And he really has good backing. People want to see him successful. He's really well thought of.
Well, let's go back to the start of the race. We all were speculating, was this going to be another walk away like it was in St. Pete for Alex Palou? Even though he did not qualify up front, he did, shall we say, gave way at the start of the race to gain some spots and was in the hunt in the top 5 when this happened.
Palou's in the middle of the hornet's nest. He and Ria's VK make contact, and Alex Palou hits the outside retaining wall just across the start finish line. He ran out of room.
I started to dissect that one, Todd, and from my perspective, and even afterwards when the media asked Palou about it, he kind of gave him the Heisman. It was a very weak excuse. He said, well, I don't know because I haven't seen the replay. And then the folks at Fox literally showed him the replay that shows clearly. Now, should a VK charge to the outside the way that he did? Well, you can make the argument. But when you look at the replay, Palou faded to the high side, and he paid the price.
Yeah, me just being a fan, I'm not an expert here. So I really had trouble. I listened to one of my favorite guys around, Davey Hamilton, and Davey said he thought, I heard him on the radio because I listen to IndyCar Radio. I love it. I listen, even when I'm at the race, I listen to IndyCar Radio. And that's why Only Bulls wants to sponsor it, because we're just gigantic fans of what they do on IndyCar Radio and just the analysis of all the people. But Davey Hamilton I'm a big fan. And he said that he thought Renus kind of messed up there. And I didn't quite understand why he messed up, whether it was a checkup or maybe he shouldn't have went to that area of the track. But I felt bad for Palou. But got to give a perspective. I think Palou's winning like 25% of every race, which is sort of unprecedented. So, you're bound to have a day where you get knocked out. I think Alex is such a professional. He probably doesn't want to say anything bad. I don't know that I've ever seen Alex get mad. So, I think that's
well. I will tell you this about Alex. Okay, he seldom makes the same mistake twice. If you go back, if you really want to understand this accident, I'm going to make you an expert. All right. If you go back and you look, it all started, and this is where Davey was absolutely spot on. It all started with the pass by Graham Rahal on Alex. Well, the dirty air was there. Alex did check up for just a second, and VK had a head of steam and was already pointed to the outside and ran out of wall. Pure and simple, what they would say is one of those racing accidents. I don't think you can lay it at the foot of VK, who went several laps down but did manage to finish the race.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can't. It's really something I don't know. That part is really difficult for me to understand. Whether or not you're just in the wrong area at the wrong time. I couldn't say whose fault it was, and I'm definitely not qualified to. But
let me try and give you the best analogy. Have you ever been in wall-to-wall traffic, and then all of a sudden there's a break, and you speed up, and you start to catch up your momentum? And imagine if there weren't any brake lights. Yeah. All of a sudden, everybody then checks up. Happens on the interstate all the time, and the next thing you know, you're applying the brakes a lot harder than you'd hope. But then again, when you have a Ferrari, I guess they've got a better braking system than my Ford Pinto would. It's the unprecedented part of next week. Is you've got two of the major sports franchises that are being dramatically involved. The only thing is further down the road that I think could rival it, but then again, it will rival it just because of the fact that the President of the United States will say that it'll be the number one event. And that, of course, is the Freedom 250 later in August. But we'll talk a little bit about that event before we go off the air here, because I think that there's so many relative unknowns to that event. And with the way things are unfolding, like I just got the points, and believe it or not, Josef Newgarden is the early point leader after two events. Who'd have thunk that?
There you go. Yeah, and Kyle's right there. Kyle 5 points behind. And McLaughlin. So it's Penske, Andretti, Penske, McLaren, and then back to see Alex. But Alex only fell after a DNF. He only fell to fifth. So he's, wow.
And it's early. Powerful. Yeah, it's early. Yeah, but let's give you the rundown, at least of the top 10, the official order of finish after the Good Ranch. The Good Ranchers 250. Talked about Josef Newgarden, Kyle Kirkwood, David Malukas after starting on the pole, held on and finished in the third spot. Paddock Award got fourth, fifth, and you brought this. You mentioned this. Good performance by Marcus Armstrong, Alexander Rossi. I really thought Rossi going off strategy might have benefited him, but I think he used up the good on his tires, trying to chase down the leader and get unlapped. Scott Dixon, then Scotty Mack in the eighth spot, Graham Rahal in ninth, and Kiffin Simpson. There's a kid you want to put an asterisk next. I think that this will be a big year for Kiffin Simpson. He filled out the 10th spot. So those are the top 10 from the Good Ranchers 250. Anything that stands out in your mind, Todd, as you look back on the event today?
I'm surprised to see Will. Will is so good, and I was surprised to see Will's little troubles here and there. And obviously, that kind of stands out to me. What's going on with Will? I'm sure he's a little frustrated, but and then of course Alex Rossi, which I listened to Pruitt the other day on the podcast talking about Rossi having a good week this week. He did have a good week, finishing sixth. I don't quite exactly know what happened there at the end with Rasmussen and stuff like that. I thought that was a little strange. David, on the podium, starting at the pole. I thought the series is so competitive now, and that's the difference I think between us and other series is that almost anyone can win here. It doesn't take a lot. The difference between I'm always fascinated when we talked about earlier about the Indy 500. The difference between qualifying is so minute in terms of seconds after 10 miles, 4 laps, 2.5 miles at the Indy 500. You can see this throughout the whole season is, how competitive things can be. And you saw Graham Rahal get to the front from the beginning when he was qualifying. And so it's just anyone can win here. That's what's great about this series.
And it's the narrowest of margins. I mean, let's
beyond narrow.
What have we been talking about at this race? The guys that ended up in the back or during a caution ended up finding themselves at the back of the pack. But then before the race was over, they also found themselves leading in the race. I tell you what I think is going to be really thought-provoking is the feedback over on the NASCAR brigade as they watched up close and personal and much different. Now, NASCAR has shared a weekend in the past with IndyCar, but it was on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This was the first true side-by-side comparison with Indy cars and the stock cars. And listening to Joey Logano, who's part of that Team Penske organization, there were a number of times where he just expressed disbelief at what was going on out there in this battle of inches. And his version and beginning to understand what dirty air does to these cars as compared to the dirty air that he has to deal with come tomorrow in the running of the stock car race, which leads me to a hypothetical. Who do you think out of NASCAR will make a crossover attempt and follow in the footsteps of a Kyle Larson?
Oh God. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be. I don't know. That's a tough call. I would not know.
I know that there are a couple of kids.
Oh yeah, I kind of agree with John a little bit here.
What did John say?
Chandler Smith. I like that. He said Chandler Smith. I kind of like. Yeah, I like. He's young. I met him. He's aggressive. He led the Only Bulls 150, the NASCAR race last week.
Right.
We're looking hard at NASCAR right now in terms of our company as we're growing globally. We're in 172 countries now with Only Bulls. And I like that truck platform. It was fun. Chandler Smith has got a potential to cross over. He's a really good young man.
Here's the one that was right on our Indianapolis Motor Speedway network today. And that was Connor Zilic, who basically said
there you go.
He wants to run in the Indianapolis 500 at some time, but I'm paraphrasing. But right now my plate is full as I'm trying to, take over and, life at the cup level. But I think.
Jack, how do you feel about people doing that? Because
I think
I want to hear your perspective on that.
I think there should be more of them.
You do.
When I started, and here's part of the problem. When I first started in this crazy business, Memorial Day could fall on a Saturday, a Sunday, a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, what have you. And the race of the Indianapolis 500 was traditionally on whatever day Memorial Day fell on. The World 600 was always on the Sunday closest to Memorial Day. So there was a ton of crossover. Junior Johnson made an attempt at the Indy 500. Bobby Johns attempted. Smokey Unick used to go up there with cars. Then there were the Allison brothers, Neil Bonnet. I mean, the list is endless. But then when they had to run back-to-back, then the crossover evaporated. 1969, my first race, Leroy Yarborough and Cale Yarborough both were in the field for the Indianapolis 500. Why? Because it was run on an off day, and they could still run in the what is now called the Coke 600. I think we have to have more of that. I think yet last week, Dario Franchitti taking a shot at the Truck Series, even though he's an old man.
I love that.
Even though it's,
I loved it.
We don't need, as a sport, we do not need to be segregated. We need to create a big house, and we need to bring everybody into the tent. You mentioned the youngsters in the world. Your efforts with trying to get new fans and young fans, that's important if we want to survive as a sport, not just as NASCAR or IndyCar or Formula One. We need to do it because one of the things, Todd, that happens is like my grandkids. When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to turn 16 so I could get my license. These kids are so used to taking an Uber and a Lyft that they don't even bother to go get their license. I mean, what about your kids?
I have a 21
they're older now. Yeah.
I have a 20-year-old daughter that doesn't have a license, and I have a 20-year-old son. They're twins, and he just got his license like a year and a half ago. So, yeah, when I was 9 or 10, I was begging to drive a little Civic that my babysitter had because I was a tall kid, 6 foot, when I was in 5th grade, and I wanted to do it so bad. I got my driver's license like one day after I turned 16. But listen, I want to make it clear to any IndyCar driver or any NASCAR driver out there, they're looking to get a ride for the Indy 500. Call us. We'd love that story. We'd love to be part of that for sure.
Well, there you go, people. There's late breaking news here.
Yeah.
Told you, one lap around. It's all you need. Last lap. One more lap.
There you go.
We just broke the story. So let me before we end up closing out our little Coco Clutch and harmonica recital, let's talk about next week. This is We've done a road course, a street course, and now an oval. Now we go back to a temporary street course that no one has raced on. St. Pete, we have a black book. Phoenix, we had a test. So now all of the drivers, they have to rely on sim. They put the pressure on their engineers. Their first look at this course in Arlington, outside of whatever that they could create in computer sim, will be when first practice takes place. I think it levels the playing field around their engineers. Their first look at this course in Arlington, outside of whatever that they could create in computer sim, will be when first practice takes place. I think it levels the playing field.
Yeah, I do too, and I really hope that Indy has a lot of practice there. Maybe they throw in a couple extra practice sessions. Once again, I'm not an expert, but it seems like to me a brand new course, a lot of things can go wrong there, and you want to make them right. Such a big opportunity return to Texas. Used to love Texas Motor Speedway so fast. It's going to be great to see this around Dallas. It's going to be popular in that big state. I've invited a lot of people. I've invited 200 people to go because I own a company. My company owns a company there called Circle 8 Cranes, and we're so excited. We're going to have the CEO of Circle 8 there. We service the oil and gas industry with our big cranes. We pick stuff up, we put it down, we pick it up and put it down again, and we're excited to have our crane. We're going to have the crane Circle 8 on the car, one of the cars, and we're excited to be in Dallas. I love it. I'm excited to be in Texas again, and it's going to be great for Indy to be back.
You're going to make a cameo appearance in season 4 of Landman?
I don't think so, but I am.
Well,
by the
if
way,
you
I
have
can tell you
crane,
for sure,
if you have cranes,
I have accepted something that you'll be the first to hear about, Jack. I think John knows about this, but I have accepted a reality series. So I'm going to start having reality footage of what I do at Indy on TV. We don't know what channel it's going to be on, but we're going to have a reality series. There you go.
Good for you. Look,
I don't know if it's good for me or not. I don't know if everyone's going to like that or not. I don't know.
Well, one of the things, Todd, you got to understand about a reality show is what's left on the cutting room floor sometimes is really the best stuff. So don't worry.
Yeah.
And your story is such a great story. We're so happy to have you as part of of our racing family. Before we close out this little get together, I want to share with you 2 Phoenix stories that involved my career. The first was like my 3rd year at ABC Sports. and I was a pit announcer, and I still was unsure of myself, but it was the Granatelli car driven by it was Vince Granatelli's car driven by Roberto Guerrero, and back then we didn't run Shell fuel. We ran methanol, which was highly volatile, but you couldn't see it. So fires were commonplace on pit road. Well, guess what? Roberto Guerrero comes into the pits and catches on fire. And I look down and my feet are on fire, but I can't see it. The only way that I can tell is because it sucks up so much oxygen. You would think I had killed off about 4 cartons of cigarettes because I couldn't breathe. And so I was on air at the time, and Vince is yelling at me to get, because he goes, you're on fire, you're on fire. I stepped over into 2 buckets of water and put myself out and never missed a beat. And Vince Granatelli came up to me and said, you really need this job that bad? And so I said, anytime I can get a chance to have an on camera, no one's taking it away from me. Fast forward a number of years later when ABC decided to hire the late, great Bobby Unser. And they called me and they said, we've hired Bobby. And I go, great, he's going to go up in the booth. No, he's going to be your fellow pit announcer on pit road. Well, forgive me, but I just couldn't see Bobby Unser as a pit announcer. Well, the race starts, and all of a sudden, somebody pits, and the producer goes, I said, I'll be there in a second. Don't worry, Bobby's already there. So Unser makes the report, and I'm thinking, how's this? So then it was, I forget who it was. The next driver comes into the pits, and I'm standing right there, and they go, Bobby's got it. And Bobby gives a play-by-play. By the third time that he did this, I'm standing in the pit, and he is calling the race, and Bobby is nowhere to be found. During the commercial break, I look up, and there used to be a tower in the infield, and Bobby and his cohorts had set up shop there, right smack dab in the middle of this, right by the start-finish line, because the track used to be flip-flopped, with a sun umbrella, snacks, and he was calling all of the pit stops with a set of binoculars.
There you go.
One thing about Bobby Unser is he could improvise. No need for us to improvise, though, because we will be with you again next week, as we'll take one more lap around on IndyCar Radio, powered by Only Bulls. Todd, it's going to be fun the rest of this season. We'll get all the kinks and get unwound here. But congratulations to Josef Newgarden, a well-deserved victory. And as I said at the beginning of the show, bookending the last race before IndyCar went on hiatus to now the first race when IndyCar returned to the desert of Phoenix. Thanks, everybody. My thanks to Chris Pollock, who is the producer, to Corbin Lingenfelter, who is the studio producer, and to your guy that keeps you on the straight and narrow, to John Stewart. For Todd Ault, I'm Zach Arute. Join us next week, won't you? So long, everybody.
Green flag flies on the Good Ranchers 250, and it's a side-by-side drag race as they set up for turn number 1.
Malukas down to the bottom to driver's left. He'll grab the lead by the time they race to turn number 2. Quickly falling in line, Josef Newgarden. He'll drop off a couple of car lengths.
Josef Newgarden does fall back a couple of car lengths, and he is under pressure from Alexander Rossi, who's already picked up a couple of spots. Malukas full song now as he exits the start-finish line, set sail back to turn 1.
Will Power showing a lot of intestinal fortitude in the early laps, being able to work the outside lane, trying to work over trouble off turn 3. Got one car sliding down to the inside of the racetrack, noses an inside safer barrier.
And that car continues to slide down the backstretch and come to rest just in front of the main grandstand. And it looks like the 19 machine of Dennis Hauger. For those in the middle of the hornet's nest, he and Bria's VK make contact, and Alex Palou hits the outside retaining wall just across the start-finish line. He ran out of room. Josef Newgarden now, as he works his way off of the bottom of the racetrack, off the start-finish line, setting up for turn number 1.
Here they come into the corner. Malukas just exiting the pit lane, side by side. Malukas and Newgarden on the back straightaway.
And they stay side by side, and it looks like Malukas was going to take his foot out of it. He does just a little bit as Joseph's able to slip behind him now and work his way back to the start-finish line. So a pretty good drag race. He'll celebrate the return and the 60th anniversary of Team Penske. He goes to victory lane. He wins the Good Ranchers 250 at Phoenix Raceway.
This podcast is a paid advertisement by Seismic Media Partners on behalf of Only Boys. IndyCar does not endorse any product or service offered in this podcast. Investing of any kind involves risk. Listeners should not rely on statements made during the podcast for purposes of making any investment decision. Please consult with a qualified professional before investing.